When we look at the animal kingdom, we see sacrifice, we see devotion, and we see sheer brutality. Imagine a mother that actively eats her own babies, or deliberately pushes her young toward starvation. It looks cruel, it sounds horrific, but what if these terrifying acts of neglect and cannibalism aren't mistakes but a form of brilliant survival strategy? This isn't a video about judging bad moms. This is about evolutionary science. We're diving into the ruthless logic that dictates these choices. We'll uncover how limited resources, intense predation, or even genetics force some animal parents to make life and death calculations that seem utterly insane to us. From the cold calculation of the black-tailed prairie dog to the calculated abandonment of the cuckoo, we're peeling back the layers on the most shocking parental paradoxes in the wild. Stick around to find out why, for these mothers, being cruel is often the only way to be kind to the species.
We begin our journey not with a terrifying predator, but with one of North America's cutest and most social residents, the black-tailed prairie dog. These highly collaborative creatures live in massive, bustling underground cities, warning each other of danger, grooming, and sharing the labor of maintaining their vast tunnel networks. They project the very definition of harmony and cooperative parenthood. Yet, within the tight, resource-scarce confines of their colonies, a chilling truth exists. Their dense population makes competition for food and nesting space absolutely lethal. This intense pressure gives rise to one of the most shocking maternal behaviors, infanticide. Studies have shown that in some colonies, over half of all infant deaths are not caused by predators, but by other female prairie dogs. The killers are almost always the mothers from neighboring tunnels, or even rival females within the same immediate family unit, like grandmothers or aunts. They use the cover of the real mother's absence to sneak into the burrow, locate the vulnerable pups, and kill them deliberately. It is a calculated, cold-blooded act that shatters our romanticized view of instinct. Why commit such an ultimate betrayal? The answer is not malice, but mathematics. In this zero-sum environment, every litter born represents a direct threat to the resources available for the killer's own young. By eliminating a rival's offspring, a female instantly frees up critical food, water, and space for her pups growing in the adjacent burrow. It is a highly effective, albeit horrific, strategy to reduce competition at the most crucial developmental stage. This is the point where the paradox of cruel to be kind snaps into focus. By committing infanticide, the aggressor mother doubles the odds of her own lineage surviving the harsh early stages of life. Her pups are now larger, healthier, and have a far better chance of reaching adulthood and passing on her genes. Sacrificing the neighbor's genetic future is the single most ruthless, yet genetically successful act she can perform for her own children. The prairie dog's logic is a powerful lesson. Eliminate the competition so your bloodline can thrive. But what happens when the scarcity isn't just about external resources, but about the mother's own physical survival? We've seen mothers kill to feed their young, but our next subject takes this calculated self-interest to a far darker extreme. She doesn't just eliminate rivals. She turns to cannibalism as a necessary, brutal act of self-preservation. From the collaborative prairies, we move to a creature many of us once kept as beloved pets, the Syrian hamster. Small, fuzzy, and instantly recognizable, they seem to embody simple domesticity. Yet the same genetic code that runs through the hamsters in your home harbors one of the animal kingdom's most desperate survival acts. When resources dwindle and the mother is pushed to the brink, she becomes capable of a sudden, drastic, and profoundly disturbing maternal turn. This shocking phenomenon most often occurs in first-time mothers who are highly stressed, overwhelmed by a large litter, or most critically suffering from severe dehydration or lack of protein. Under these extreme pressures, the mother will choose to cull her litter, selecting the weakest pups or sometimes, tragically, consuming the entire brood. This is not the clean, strategic kill of the prairie dog. This is often a chaotic, desperate reaction. The sight of a mother consuming her own offspring is terrifying, but it is not a sign of a broken mind. It's a sign of a primary instinct pushed beyond its endurance. In the arid landscapes where the Syrian hamster evolved, water is the ultimate limiting factor. Producing milk for a large litter is incredibly dehydrating, demanding far more liquid and energy than the mother may have access to. When her body hits a critical deficit, her evolutionary programming initiates a catastrophic emergency shutdown. The mother realizes that if she continues to nurse a full litter, she will die, taking all her pups with her due to her inability to produce milk. The conflict shifts from competition to existential triage. The act of cannibalism, horrific as it is to our eyes, is the hamster's last-ditch effort to replenish those critical nutrients and vital fluids. By consuming a few of her pups, she dramatically increases her own chances of survival, stabilizing her body just enough to continue nursing the remaining, stronger members of the litter. She sacrifices the doomed few for the potential viability of the many. In this scenario, the mother's most desperate act is, in fact, the most profound guarantee, ensuring that at least some of her genetic material lives to reproduce again. Both the prairie dog and the hamster act to save their own bloodline from internal threats of scarcity. They are present mothers making terrible, calculated choices. But what if a species could offload the entire burden of parenthood onto another species, committing a parental act so cunning and effortless that it becomes the ultimate act of cruelty? We're about to meet a creature whose entire survival strategy revolves around ultimate parental evasion, the master of deception in the animal kingdom. We now turn our attention to the common cuckoo, a bird whose name is globally recognized for its distinctive, rhythmic call. However, its reputation among biologists is far darker, as its parenting strategy is the epitome of biological betrayal. The cuckoo mother is perhaps the laziest parent in the animal kingdom, but never mistake her for being inefficient. She is, in fact, an ultimate evolutionary hustler. The cuckoo will never build a nest, never feed her young, and will never even see her chick hatch. Her entire survival plan is built upon a single, cold act of deception and resource theft. Her strategy, known as brood parasitism, is cold and ruthlessly precise. The cuckoo mother carefully scouts a potential host nest, often choosing a much smaller, insect-eating bird like the reed warbler. Waiting for the host parent to leave, the cuckoo swoops in, quickly lays her own egg, which is brilliantly camouflaged to mimic the host's, and removes or sometimes consumes one of the host's existing eggs. This switch is only the beginning of the betrayal. The cuckoo chick hatches early, and though blind and featherless, it performs its most brutal task, instinctively pushing the unhatched host eggs or the host's own tiny chicks right out of the nest. The aftermath is both tragic and absurd. The tiny, exhausted host parents are left tirelessly feeding a gigantic, unrelated chick that grows exponentially larger than them. Their parental instincts, honed over millennia, have been completely hijacked. They devote every ounce of energy and every scrap of food to the biological imposter, inadvertently starving their own genetic lineage in the process. The host mother pours all her devotion into a chick that is directly responsible for the death of her own children. From the cuckoo's perspective, this strategy is brilliantly kind to her own genes. By scattering her eggs across dozens of separate, independent nests, the cuckoo mother achieves massive risk diversification. She avoids the immense energy expenditure required to build a single nest, incubate eggs, and raise a clutch. Instead, she maximizes her output while minimizing her personal investment. Her cruelty to the host is simply the most successful and ruthless path to her genetic longevity. The cuckoo shows us that the most effective survival strategy sometimes involves total evasion and ruthless outsourcing. But not every mother can walk away. Our next case involves a creature whose life is a perpetual war against the cold. This mother does not abandon her young, nor does she feed on them. Instead, she makes an incredible final sacrifice after her young hatch, a shocking act of slow, final devotion that ends her own life, proving that sometimes being kind to your children means being cruel to yourself. We've seen mothers kill rivals and even eat their own young to survive. But our next subject demonstrates that sometimes, the ultimate act of kindness to your offspring requires the ultimate cruelty to yourself. Meet the Australian social spider, a creature rare among its kind for living in cooperative, highly social colonies. The young hatch into a sheltered, tight-knit world built by the mother, a temporary world of safety. But just as they emerge, a quiet, terrifying process of self-destruction begins for the devoted parent. Following the birth of her large brood, the mother's internal organs begin to change, initiating a deliberate and irreversible process of decay. She has hunted tirelessly to prepare for this moment, but external food isn't the final meal. Instead, she allows her body to liquefy from the inside out. When the young spiders are just a few days old, they instinctively climb onto their mother's body. She doesn't fight them. She remains motionless as they pierce her tissue and begin to consume her. This horrifying behavior is called matrophagy, and it is driven by one thing: pure, inescapable nutritional necessity. The young spiders are almost entirely dependent on this first massive influx of protein. No amount of traditional prey that the mother could catch would provide the dense, vital energy needed to get the brood past the perilous early stages of life. Her entire body becomes the perfectly tailored first meal, delivering the high-octane fuel required for their rapid growth and eventual independence. The mother's death is not a failure. It is the ultimate evolutionary triumph. Research shows that broods that consume their mother have a drastically higher survival rate and are significantly healthier than those that don't. By sacrificing herself, she converts her entire biomass into the collective energy of her children. Her life ends, but her genetic legacy is maximized, ensuring that her sacrifice serves the greater good of her entire brood. Her personal cruelty is the greatest genetic kindness she could bestow. The spider has taught us about total physical sacrifice. Now we move to a different kind of parental exit. We've seen mothers kill rivals and sacrifice their health, but the most common, and perhaps coldest, form of bad parenting is simply walking away. Our next subject, one of the ocean's most unique creatures, commits an act of total, immediate abandonment right after birth. She trades an entire lifetime of maternal responsibility for a brief moment of freedom, leaving a vast, vulnerable brood to fend for themselves in the terrifying depths of the ocean. Few animals are as bizarre and imposing as the oceanic sunfish or mola mola. These massive, awkward titans of the deep can weigh more than 2 elephants, and are perhaps the slowest creatures in the ocean. Yet, this creature holds the world record for the most eggs produced by any vertebrate, laying a mind-boggling 300 million eggs in a single spawning event. This incredible act of productivity is immediately followed by a parental choice so cold and complete. It defines the phrase cruel neglect. The moment those eggs are released, the sunfish mother swims away, never looking back. This is not passive neglect. It is total and instant abandonment. The 300 million hatchlings are left as microscopic, defenseless, vulnerable targets in a vast ocean full of predators. The mother provides no nest, no guard, and not a single second of protection. She has invested everything in the mass production and absolutely nothing into care. She essentially delivers her entire lineage straight to the jaws of the deep. The mother simply lacks the physical capacity or the anatomical structure for effective parental care. The massive number of eggs she produces are too vulnerable to be guarded. Her single purpose is to compensate for an abysmal survival rate. Less than 1 in 300 million will reach adulthood. If she wasted time and energy trying to guard a few eggs, her entire genetic legacy would likely be erased. Her abandonment is an acknowledgement of the brutal odds and the only logical response to them. Her kindness lies entirely in the power of statistical probability. By laying 300 million eggs, she plays a massive numbers game, ensuring that even if 99.999% of her offspring perish, the few that survive will propagate her successful genes. The oceanic sunfish mother trades dedicated, focused effort for sheer volume. Her ultimate cruelty is her complete indifference, yet that indifference is the most effective path to genetic longevity in her vast, dangerous world. The sunfish mother's strategy is calculated abandonment, but the next mother cannot walk away. She commits fully to the vigil, starving herself only to realize that to save the majority of her offspring, she must commit an act of cannibalism on her own unhatched young. We move from the cruelty of not caring to the heartbreaking cruelty of caring too much. Now we dive into the painful triage of the mountain skink. Our exploration continues with a mother whose dedication appears, at first glance, absolute. The mountain skink is a tiny lizard that commits fully to guarding her nest, refusing to leave the clutch of eggs she has painstakingly buried. She remains there for weeks, a vigilant, unwavering guardian against environmental threats. This commitment, however, presents a deadly problem. She cannot leave to hunt. Her devotion starves her, and as her body's reserves plummet, her maternal love faces its most extreme test. The long vigil eventually leads to a necessary, horrifying betrayal. When the mother is pushed to the brink of starvation, she will commit an act of maternal cannibalism. She doesn't eat her hatched young, but rather a portion of the unhatched eggs she is supposed to be protecting. This is not the massive, feeding frenzy of the hamster. It's a careful, horrifying triage. She is consuming her own direct offspring, her future, simply to fuel her present. The sight is chilling, a mother devouring her own investment just to stay alive in the very nest she's guarding. This behavior is driven by the brutal economics of parental energy investment. Her primary goal is not the life of every single egg, but the successful hatching and survival of the largest possible clutch. Studies suggest the eggs she consumes are often the weak, unfertilized, or decaying ones, the ones least likely to survive anyway. By using them as an emergency food source, she conserves her remaining energy and maintains the physical strength needed to fight off predators, who would otherwise consume the entire nest. The mountain skink's self-cannibalism is therefore a masterclass in optimization. Her body is literally telling her, sacrifice the few unviable to save the strong majority. Her act ensures she stays alive long enough to provide the warmth, moisture, and defense required for the healthy eggs to incubate. Her cruelty eating her own unborn is the only way to sustain the maternal vigil and guarantee the collective success of her brood. She must be cruel to the few to be kind to the many. This leads us to a new level of competition. We've seen cruelty used to preserve a nest, but what happens when the mother allows the brutality to happen inside her own body? The mountain skink's triage is horrifying, but the next mother allows an internal battlefield to decide which of her children is worthy of life. Our focus shifts now to the deep ocean, where the struggle for survival begins even before birth. The sand tiger shark mother embodies a form of maternal efficiency so brutal it redefines the concept of sibling rivalry. She carries up to 12 embryos at a time, seemingly fulfilling a mother's basic duty to nurture. But within the dark, confined space of her 2 uteri, a horrifying race against her own offspring is already underway. This mother gives birth to a litter that has already begun its life by committing its first act of ultimate predation. The sand tiger shark produces far more eggs than any other shark, but only 2 pups are born, one from each uterus. This massive reduction in numbers is caused by intrauterine cannibalism, or autophagy. The first pup to develop teeth within the womb immediately turns on its unhatched brothers and sisters, devouring them one by one. The mother does nothing to stop this internal massacre. Instead, her body continuously ovulates, providing a constant stream of nutritional eggs for her 2 strongest survivors to eat until they are finally ready for birth. This grotesque process is the shark mother's form of quality control. The pups born are already super predators, strong, massive, and fully capable of surviving the moment they hit the water. If the mother gave birth to 12 weak pups, they would all likely perish. By allowing this brutal competition, she ensures that her energy and resources are invested exclusively into the fastest, strongest, and most ruthless 2. She is sacrificing the majority to guarantee the dominance of the absolute best. The mother's body becomes the arena, and her unhatched eggs become the sacrificial offering. This act of cold neutrality, allowing the internal carnage to play out, is the surest way to propagate the strongest genes. It is a terrifying example of evolution accelerating the process of natural selection before the light of day. Her deliberate non-intervention is the most profound kindness she can offer her dominant offspring, ensuring they emerge from the womb as kings of their own domain. The sand tiger shark mother's cruelty ends the moment her pups are born. Our final case study takes us back to the deep, where a mother's devotion is measured not in weeks but in years. She does not eat her young, nor does she let them fight. Instead, she commits to an unblinking, prolonged vigil so total, so absolute, that the kindness to her children inevitably spells certain slow death for herself. Her ultimate sacrifice is the final, chilling paradox of parental love. Meet the giant Pacific octopus, one of the most intelligent and majestic creatures in the ocean. This mother's act of parenting is the longest, most dedicated vigil known in the animal kingdom. Once she finds a secluded den, she lays up to 50,000 eggs, carefully gluing them to the ceiling. This moment marks the beginning of her unshakable, 2-year-long commitment, a commitment so consuming that the act of protecting her children guarantees her own slow demise. For the next 53 months, the mother does not leave her den for any reason. She does not hunt, she does not eat, as she refuses all temptation. Her entire world is reduced to her egg clutches. She constantly bathes them with jets of oxygenated water and cleans them of algae and debris, protecting them from threats both seen and unseen. She is a stationary living fortress. The prolonged vigil causes her body to waste away. Her beautiful skin fades and her muscle mass degrades. She is choosing voluntary starvation. The octopus's eggs are incredibly vulnerable to infection and suffocation. Any lapse in care, even a short hunt for food, would doom the entire clutch. The low metabolism of the cold, deep water requires this extended incubation period. The mother understands that her presence is the only protection against predators and disease for over 4 years. Her self-inflicted cruelty is merely a survival mechanism that ensures the eggs reach the critical, necessary time needed for hatching. When the eggs finally hatch, the mother, now pale, weak, and frail, pushes the last of her young out into the current. Her work is done. Having dedicated her final, full reproductive cycle and her entire remaining energy to this purpose, she dies soon after. Her death is a programmed evolutionary necessity. She has sacrificed her entire lifespan and all her biological reserves to achieve the single goal of maximum genetic success. Her incredible devotion is the final, most profound example of being cruel to the self to be kind to the next generation. From the ruthless, internal battlefield of the sand tiger shark to the staggering 4-year dedication of the octopus, we have mapped the final, unforgiving limits of maternal sacrifice. Every shocking choice, no matter how brutal, is a direct fulfillment of the single, cold law of the wild. Now we step back to answer our central question one last time. What does this ruthless parental paradox teach us about the very nature of life? We started this journey by asking if these mothers were cruel or if they were kind. We've seen a staggering spectrum of betrayal and devotion, the prairie dog eliminating rivals, the hamster consuming her young for water, the cuckoo evading all responsibility, and the social spider offering her entire body. The truth is, these mothers are neither cruel nor kind. They are simply optimal. Evolution does not reward feelings. It rewards results. Every shocking choice, every abandonment, every act of triage is a finely tuned mechanism designed to maximize the chances that some of the mother's genes make it to the next generation. The mother's personal survival, or the survival of the strong majority, always trumps the life of a weak individual. It is not morality that guides them, but the cold, hard logic of statistical probability and genetic fitness. Our human minds are hardwired to seek love, empathy, and sadness in these struggles. But the wilderness cares nothing for our emotions. In the wild, the mother's only true purpose is genetic legacy. When resources disappear, when predators circle, or when her body is on the verge of collapse, she is forced to view her own offspring as nothing more than a potential investment or a necessary casualty. Her job is not to love all of her children equally, but to guarantee the success of the few best suited to carry on her line. If these ruthless survival strategies shocked you, remember that in the wild, the line between cruelty and kindness is just the line between life and extinction. The ultimate lesson is that in nature, the harshest acts are often driven by the deepest biological imperative to survive. Don't let the biological drama end here. Subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss our next deep dive into the science of the wild. If you want more videos that shock and inform, hit the like button and tell us in the comments, which mother's choice surprised you the most?